it's very important to place the right flowers in the right place. In the same way, Baba seeing all his children as one bouquet. And just imagine, each one of us brings our own speciality to the bouquet of variety that Baba has in front of him. And so, what is the speciality that I am bringing? Each one of us, for the past thousands of years, had been living with this awareness of just being this human being. And as such, we were living with the awareness of being the child of a particular set of parents. We knew no other way of life. But Baba comes, and with just that one being, the being who doesn't actually come into birth and death, doesn't come into the cycle of rebirth, and yet he is able to give us the experience of each and every relationship. And so, just appreciating the beauty of the confluence age, the last few days in the Murlis, Baba's been mentioning that when you speak about the confluence age, you speak about how elevated it is, how auspicious it is. And when you look at your life being with Baba, then you realize, what was my life before I came to Baba? And what has my life become after I come to Baba? I was just listening to something on the YouTube just a while ago, just a few minutes ago. And the sister was talking about how when she came to Baba, she saw the transformation in her life. And knowing that alone by herself, working on herself, she would never have been able to bring about that transformation. But coming to Baba, becoming Baba's child, knowing Baba's knowledge and the teachings that Baba gives us, through those teachings, able to bring about so much transformation within the self, knowing that she could not do it alone. It was with Baba that she was able to bring about that transformation. And so really appreciating the presence of God in my life. Where would I be without God? I'd been living in this awareness of being just this physical human being. God comes and tells me that's the wrong way of living. Now you have to, that was living as a child of a human being. Now you have to live as a child of God. So what does it mean to be a child of God? Being a child of God means God is my parent. And so looking up to that parent, what is the child going to be like? Usually we say for God, God creates man in his image. Whatever God is like, human beings are the same. But we had no understanding of what God was like. Every religion depicts God in a different way. Although God is said to be incorporeal, God is said to be formless, God is said to be a point of light, yet each one's belief is different of what God is, who God is. And now when God comes and he gives me an introduction, not just to himself, but to myself also, then it's possible for me to forge that relationship with God and be a child of God. Before that, not having an introduction to Him, not knowing who He was, it's not possible for me to have a connection with Him, for me to have a relationship with Him. But only when I know Him, I understand Him, can I have a relationship with Him. So Baba comes and tells me the first and foremost thing for me to do is to shed body consciousness and to become soul conscious. So living as a child of God, the first and foremost thing I have to do is change my consciousness from being a human being, live as a soul. God is a soul, only He is supreme. But living as His child, I also have to live as a soul. Living as a soul means portraying the qualities of the soul in all my interactions with everyone. So the first and foremost teachings that Baba is giving us is to be peaceful. So when I start living as a child of God, the first transformation that takes place is that I become peaceful. Before that, I had been searching for peace. I had been unhappy. And now that I've found God, I found myself, I begin to experience peace and I become peaceful. Generally, when you go into a gathering where there's a group of BKs, what is the atmosphere like when they're sitting together? When they're not engaged in any kind of activity, but they're all just sitting together, you could say just being themselves. It's a very peaceful atmosphere, a very conducive atmosphere, very harmonious because all of us sitting there together are sitting in the one consciousness of being God's children. Living as God's children, there isn't any air about each one in the sense of being higher or lower, junior or senior, bigger or smaller. Each one is just that. All are on one level, that we are all the children of God, and God is our Father. So when you're living with that awareness, then naturally there is harmony in everything because you're all seeing one another as souls. And as Baba often speaks, you are practicing brotherhood, the awareness of the soul. And as such, everything that you do, your thoughts, your words, your actions, your time, your every moment, all of that is lived with the awareness of being I, the soul, am a peaceful soul. I, the soul, am a child of God. And as such, when you're actually having that awareness, what is the awareness that comes through? The vibrations that come through is God's qualities. God is the benevolent one, the one who's the remover of sorrow and bestower of happiness. And so when people come in connection with you, all they experience is happiness. Being a child of God, 2, 3 people I asked this morning, just tell me one thing about living as a child of God. And 2 out of 3 said, just to be happy. What is it that God has come to do at this time? To give us happiness. And the third person said, being contented, being content in everything. So it's not that God is going to come and bring you diamonds and jewels and everything, but He is making you so full in yourself that you don't need anything physical, but you still feel the strength of God's presence in your life through that energy that He's giving to you. Daddy always used to speak about it in terms of three words: having a right, being light, and receiving might. So, first of all, when you consider yourself to be a child of God, then you have that right. You have a right over the parent. And so, because you have a right, everything of God is yours. And what does God have? God is nothing but just light. So you receive all His light. You receive all His might. And so just having this awareness of being a child of God, I receive His light and might. And this enables me to do whatever I want and to be successful in that. This is why we say victory is our birthright. Success is our birthright, because God gives us that birthright. If I'm living with that awareness of being a child of God, then definitely success is my birthright. But the moment I forget that I'm a child of God, what happens? Maya creeps in. As soon as Maya comes in, she makes you weak. And when you become weak, you no longer experience that victory or success. You feel yourself to be a failure. So you feel disappointed with yourself. And so that's why very important to constantly keep Baba with you as your companion, knowing that he is going to be providing everything for you. There's one person who was traveling somewhere and he was a little bit lost, getting onto the plane. Finally, he managed to get onto the plane and found that his seat was between two other people. His seat was in the middle. On one side was a little girl, and on the other side was an old lady. So anyway, he manages to fix himself in the seat and puts the belt on and sitting securely and everything. The flight takes off. And just a short while later, there is some turbulence. There's some turbulence and there's a lot of havoc there, a lot of chaos. People very much disturbed and holding tight onto their seats and gripping the side of their seats and everything because they're afraid what's going to happen to them. He looked at the old lady and she was also struggling a little bit and trying to keep herself comfortable. He looked at the girl. The girl had a sketch pad with her and she was drawing something and she was just so lost in that she didn't even notice that there was any turbulence. She just continued with her work. And he's feeling this little girl seems to be traveling alone, that there's no one with her. And he's getting a bit worried. How come she's so calm, even though she seems to be alone and there is all this turbulence and everything? But he doesn't ask anything because he himself is scared. And so he's trying to keep himself composed. Then, of course, the turbulence finishes and the journey comes to an end and they land and they're able to land safely. As they land, then before he leaves, he thought, I have to ask this girl. She's such a young girl, and yet it was as though nothing affected her. She was sitting so comfortably and peacefully in her seat, carrying on with her drawing, whatever she was drawing, and not bothered about what was happening at all. So he said, did you not notice the turbulence? And she said, yes, I did. But he said, didn't it bother you? I didn't see that you were actually affected by it. You seemed so calm and composed and you were so peaceful, even though there was all of this turbulence. Were you not afraid? And she said, no. He said, how come you are not afraid? And she says, my father is a pilot of this plane and he has come to take me back home. So she had gone away somewhere, and so he had come to collect her, but he was the pilot of the plane. So knowing that her father was actually flying that plane, she was very comfortable, knowing that he wouldn't allow anything to happen to her. In the same way, God is our guide, and He is actually flying the plane of our life. And He's going to make sure that nothing happens to you. All I have to do is have the faith that He is going to do the right thing. I don't have to do anything. And so this is what the girl had done. She didn't do anything. She just continued with whatever she had to do, knowing that her father will take care of her and won't allow anything to happen to her. Just like, when you have little babies and the parents actually throw the babies up in the air. The babies are so confident and they actually enjoy being thrown in the air because they're confident that the parent is not going to let anything happen to them. If you notice, often we get here in global house also little babies coming. The parents are feeling very excited that they bring in the baby to Baba's home. The first time they come to Baba's home. So very young babies, sometimes 6 weeks old, sometimes 2 months old, like that. And everyone loves the baby, so they start playing with her. And of course, the babies, some babies are so kind of detached that they will go to anyone without making a sound. And some are so attached to their parents that as soon as they'll go into the arms of another person, they'll recognize that it's not their parents' arms, and so they start crying. So even at such a young age, the baby is able to tell these are the parents' arms or these are the arms of someone else. And so the baby is able to experience peace in the arms of the parent. Whereas when it goes into the arms of someone else, a stranger, then it feels like there's no connection there. And so they start crying because they don't feel that sense of security and comfort. But Baba is there always for us, making sure that we are comfortable and making sure that we are safe and secure, making sure that there cannot be any kind of harm to us. And so really, all I have to do is constantly keep on thinking of being this child of God, living with the awareness as I am His only child. We have one sister here, and one of her slogans on her WhatsApp thing is, I am God's choice. Imagine, out of so many billions of souls, God has chosen me. Whatever it is that I have to do, but God has chosen me. And so just think the intoxication you would feel that out of so many souls, God has chosen you. Doesn't matter whether you're doing anything or not, but the fact that you are His chosen one gives you so much intoxication, just as Brahma Baba did. Brahma Baba felt that he was the only one. Of course, sometimes Brahma Baba would feel that I don't get the same benefit as you do. Recently, Baba said in the Murli that all of you can get a hug from Shiv Baba, but I can't get a hug from him because I can't hug myself. Shiv Baba comes in the body of Brahma, and so in that body, Shiv Baba embraces all the children. But he cannot embrace Brahma because he is sitting in that body. So Baba feels a little bit left out, that you are so lucky that you get embraced by Baba, whereas I don't have that same experience. But of course, he's the chosen one, and so Baba has to give him some extra benefits of that too. But just the first day when Yogesh Bhai had given me the topic, Living as God's Child, the first thing that came to mind is, having spent so many years with Daddy Janki, the awareness that she always had was, I am God's child. But more than that, she was always feeling, I am God's right hand. Because God didn't have any other right hand children, she felt I had to be that right hand child. And so she would actually live with that awareness of being a child of God, having that intoxication.
Jasu, Shanti, just a request, please speak slower.
Okay, will do.
Thank you.
Mhm. Just stopping for a minute. When you get intoxicated, then you get excited and you start speaking fast. Energy starts flowing fast. But having observed Daddy Janki, she always had the intoxication of being God's child, being God's right hand, and being able to do for God what no one else could do. Then I was actually looking at all our ancestors, and I especially just picked up on the five of them, Mama, Baba, and our three daddies, the Trimurti daddies. Mama lived as a child of God, but with that faith and respect of God, that she always kept herself at a distance, that God is someone so high up, and I am just this ordinary being. Means her consciousness was not ordinary, but still, in compared to God, she was just a mere human being. But still, the awareness that she was God's child. She had the awareness of being the one who had been entrusted to set up all the disciplines and all the systems. And so she was very much aware of the responsibility that she had been given. On the one hand, being God's child, but on the other hand, being a protector of the yagya. That she had to do everything to make sure that everything in the yagya was run efficiently and nothing ever went to waste. She always was so economical in everything. Looking at Baba, the awareness that Baba had was, yes, I am God's child. It's only at this time we have this opportunity to practice this awareness of being a child of God. But at the same time, he had this special relationship with God that I am his only child. So all of us are the adopted children, being the grandchildren, but Brahma Baba is the only child. And so living with that intoxication that I am the specially selected one. I am the one who God sits with and eats with and drinks with and goes to sleep with. And so feeling the intoxication of that. Looking at Dadi Kumarka's life, Dadi Prakashmani's life, she also lived with this awareness of being a special child of God. But at the same time, she lived with the awareness of being a trustee. She was a trustee in the sense that I'm not doing anything. God is doing everything. I am just the instrument here to look after God's yagya. In that sense, it was like Dadi Kumarka experienced such lightness in herself because she didn't have the awareness that I am doing. All the time, the awareness that she had was Baba is Karan Karavanhar, the one who is getting everything done, and I am the one who is doing it, Karanhar. So experiencing in everything she did because of this. And then looking at Daddy Gulzar, again, a very special role for that soul, being God's chariot, but at the same time, always aware that she's a child of God because all Lokik relationships were forgotten, even though her Lokik mother was also in the Yagya, living there with Baba. She didn't live with the awareness that this one is my mother. It was just like this one is also another child of God, just as I am a child of God. But at the same time, her practice was being a completely detached observer. And this is why she was able to play that role of being God's chariot for over 40 years. Because just imagine, God is entering this chariot and using that chariot And during the time God is using that chariot, he is actually having a meeting with all the souls who are in that gathering through this chariot. And so he is seeing everything of all the souls. And of course, this soul would pick up things, but yet the detached observer, that she didn't allow anything to influence her. Living with the awareness as a child of God, responsible, a chariot of God, she is still being such a detached observer that she didn't allow anything to influence her. Otherwise, it's so easy because God comes into her and he sees some of the qualities of souls. And so, of course, she would see it also, but not allowing that to color her subconsciousness at all. And being completely detached and yet so loving. The one quality of all of these people was that they were very loving, just as the Father was. So, speciality of a child of God is that they would actually embody the qualities of the Father. Whatever are the qualities of the Father, a real child, an obedient child, a loyal child, he would actually take the qualities of the Father and he would live with the family, the rest of the members, in the same way as the Father did. Especially the elder child, he would portray the same qualities as the Father and continue to run the family in the same way as the Father would have done, so that there isn't any kind of difference felt. Baba would always be seeing how much difference there is between himself and Shiv Baba. This is because he wanted to become the same as Shiv Baba. All the children who actually have a goal for themselves, sometimes they want to become the same as their parent. The parent has become a great personality. They've achieved a lot in their life. And so the child would want to follow the footsteps of the father and do the same thing. So in this way, Baba is showing us a way of life whereby we as the children of God can live a life that is filled with God's qualities. And again, that can only happen when there is constant connection with God. So I think the essence of today's talk, living as a child of God, is first and foremost to live in the awareness of soul consciousness. Only then can there be that connection with God. Without that connection, I cannot say that, yes, I'm a child of God. As a child of God, and for that child to be accepted by God, I also have to make sure that I am actually his obedient child. If the child is continuing to do whatever he wants against the father's wishes, against his directions, then there's no way that the father would say, yes, this is my child. It's rather, I didn't have this one as a child. But where a child is actually following the father's footsteps and living life the way that the father would have wanted, then the father finds that child acceptable. He accepts that child, he welcomes that child. And so for me to feel that comfort and security with God in my life, I have to hand over myself to him in such a way that there isn't anything that is going to create any kind of obstruction or any kind of obstacle. If I'm living with this awareness of soul consciousness, then my life is filled with the fragrance of purity, peace, and happiness. Without soul consciousness, I cannot expect to experience these things in life. And these are the things, the treasures that God has come to share with me. Having come down the cycle, I had received all of that, but then I lost all of it, but I wasn't aware of how I lost it. And you could say it's because you forgot that you are God's child. You became the child of a human being, and that's why you lost all of it. But now, being God's child, you're able to actually keep with yourself all the treasures of God, and that is all the qualities of the soul: love, peace, happiness, wisdom, truth, power, might, all of these things. And just imagine being the relationship of the child and the father is that much more enjoyable when there is understanding in that relationship. A baby that's been born just now, maybe just 6 months, has no awareness of understanding, doesn't understand anything, and so is totally dependent on the parent to provide everything for itself, for the baby. As soon as the child starts to grow up and becomes a bit more mature, then his relationship with the parent becomes that much more deeper, that much more meaningful. And he's actually able to share with the parent in the same way. Before, he was not able to do anything, but now he's able to share something with the father. And the father also feels very excited about letting the child do some of his work. When a child is learning things, the parent feels very proud when the child has learned something, picked up something that the father himself does. He feels proud that my child is following my footsteps. So in the same way, Baba also feels very proud of us when we are following his footsteps, in the sense that we are living with the qualities of God. God's qualities being so merciful, being so benevolent, being the truthful one. And so, as a child of God, to have that honesty and truthfulness in my relationship with God, then I can say, yes, I'm a child of God. But if I don't have that honesty, not even with myself, not with the Father, like Baba's telling us so many times in the Murlis, to be really honest with the Father and to tell him exactly what you are doing. If there's been a mistake, then to honestly own up to that mistake rather than trying to hide it. Then you can say that, yes, you are a true child of God. But sometimes what happens is you make a mistake and you're afraid. Then you don't want to tell the Father about it. Then you have to tell another lie to cover that mistake. So in this way, the relationship becomes that much more distant, and you lose that connection with the Father. That closeness isn't there then because there isn't that honesty. And so really, to prove that I'm a child of God, to live with the Father with such honesty in your relationship, not just with the Father, but with yourself too. Sometimes you end up deceiving yourself that, yes, you're doing fine, when in fact there's a lot of turmoil going on inside. So to be honest with the Father and let him know exactly what is happening, then he can help you. Just like you go to a doctor, and if you don't tell him what is wrong with you, he cannot actually help you. My experience just a couple of days ago, I was sent to the hospital for some checkup, and I just expected that because they've done a blood test, that they would tell me the result of that. Instead, I went to 2 or 3 different places, but each place, they were expecting me to tell them what is wrong. And only then would they give a diagnosis. And I thought they're the doctors, they should be able to tell something from having taken the blood test. But no, they wanted me to tell them what was wrong. So in the same way, the Father also expects us to tell him what is happening within ourselves. And only then can he help us. If we think that he's the mind reader and he knows what's happening inside each one of us, and expect him to come up with miracles of purifying us and making us into those deities once again, then it's not going to happen like that because, like Baba says, he is not the one who has to become the deity. We are the ones who have to become the deities. So we have to make that effort. And so making effort to become the most elevated beings once again, that can only happen through the transformation of the soul with the awareness of soul consciousness. Without soul consciousness, it's just not possible because God is not a physical being. And so living as a child of God, I have to practice living in the same way that he does. And that is without the body. And it's beautiful that in this month, we are actually practicing that, being bodiless, a shariri without the body, beyond the consciousness of the body, videhi. So seeing the body in front of you, but yet not attached to it in any way. So this kind of practice allows us to experience the same kind of qualities that the Father has within our lives. And then, of course, it's not just for ourselves because God is the ocean and He doesn't keep anything just for Himself. God is the ocean, but He is there for each and every one. He is unlimited. As human beings, we are very limited, but God is the unlimited one. And so now He's teaching us to live in that unlimited awareness, the same as Himself. And this is why it's so beautiful for all of us as this big Brahman family to just experience one family, oneness in everything. Because otherwise, we didn't know one another in the different countries and everything, different religions, different countries, different traditions, different beliefs. But now, Baba is bringing all of us together with the awareness of just this one consciousness that all of us are God's children. And so, as God's children, what is it that I need to do now? Just spread God's qualities. Just spread God's kindness. Spread God's mercy. People outside are searching for God. And Baba says, you are so lucky that you are actually living a life with God. And so just imagine how great a fortune all of us have to be living this wonderful life where we don't really have to worry about anything. Baba's taken away all our worries and we enjoying all of that freedom. So now Baba's wanting us to share that with everyone else, right? This is the responsibility that Baba's given all of us. Whatever you have taken, and this was the last thing that Dadi was always wanting everyone else to experience. What I have experienced from the family here, from Baba, I want everyone else to have the same experience. And so she considered it her duty to give people that same experience. And so it was so beautiful. In the final moments, the last few days that Daddy was here, she was wanting people to just experience that silence. And actually, this is our only way of communicating with God. It's not through words, but it's through silence. So our beautiful relationship of father and child, the communication that takes place in that relationship is with the power of silence. And now more and more, Baba is wanting us to go into that silence, experiencing stillness and silence. I think I'd like to stop there. If anyone has any questions, happy to answer them. Otherwise, nice to have some deep, powerful meditation. Sorry, I tended to be a little bit fast for me when this is slow, but I've tried as much as I could to be slower. Mm.
Thank you so much for your
Mm.
sharings. It was really very powerful, whatever you said.
Mm.
I don't see any question here, but I was thinking something. Okay, Baba is our father, mother, friend, and child.
Mm.
How can we make Baba our child? Can you share about that a little bit? The child of Baba? and he's a child.
I am a child of Baba, and Baba is my child. In this context, Baba would always say to make Baba your child means you are providing for that child. As a parent always provides for the child, in the same way, when I make Baba my child, then I provide for him in every way. And that is in context of whatever I have, I give that to my child. He becomes the heir. And so whatever is mine is actually not mine, but it then is handed down to the child. So I hand over everything to Baba as my child. So Baba always used to tell the mother especially that how many children you have. And if they'd say they have just a number of children that they had physically, then Baba will say they failed. Because then they'd say, what about Baba as your child? Because you then also have to provide for that child. That child, like Baba is providing for all of us now, but then when I make him my child, then I have to provide for him. Means I have to give whatever I have to him. And okay, someone may not have anything, but then to give whatever of yourself you can give. Like Baba always used to say about Mama, that when Mama came to the yagya, she came empty-handed. She didn't bring anything with her. Baba came and he surrendered everything to the yagya. So all of his wealth was given to Shiv Baba. So in that sense, Brahma Baba definitely made Shiv Baba his child and he handed over everything to him. Mama, she was just a Kumari when she came. She didn't have anything of her own. And the way she actually gave everything to Baba was fully surrendering her mind and intellect to Shiv Baba. And whatever she did, all the actions, whatever she did, the knowledge that she spoke, she was so much aware of using her physical body as well as her mind and intellect only for God's work. To the extent that if she was like Ramesh Bhai always used to share this experience that even though she was in the car and they were driving past somewhere, Mama would not allow her eyes to wander around everywhere else to see what there was. She would just be constantly fixed on Shiv Baba, her eyes not wandering around to see everything. Because he said, did you see that? And Mama said, my eyes are not seeing anything. The only thing that she's seeing is the golden age and new world, and she's not aware of anything else. So using all her physical sense organs to the same extent, as though they're not mine, they are Baba's. So handed over everything to Baba in that way. So she didn't give any physical wealth, but everything else she had in terms of spiritual wealth, she handed over to Baba and it was used for service. And that's why she claimed number one. Brahma Baba handed over everything that he had, and he used that for Shiv Baba's work. And that was one of the reasons that he became number one. Of course, he made his effort also, but he handed over everything to Shiv Baba, that nothing was mine. So he didn't even give a penny to his Lokik children, that was for Shiv Baba only. So making Baba your child is to give him everything of yours. Yeah?
Yes, thank you.
Mm.
We still have 5 minutes.
Mhm.
There are no questions here. I don't see any question. Would you like to share a little bit about your Lokik family and your experiences? Because I think all your family was a Brahmin family, wasn't it? And I know about Aruna has told us some things, but can you share something?
I think it's important that the whole family, the whole family, the brothers, I still have two brothers and two sisters that they had actually taken the knowledge in the beginning when we all came. But then, of course, each one has their own part in the drama. And so they didn't stay around. They didn't follow the Brahma Kumari's path. My two sisters also got married. They didn't follow this path. But now they're very close. One of my sisters listens to the Murli every day on the Zoom with the Hounslow Center, where my other sister is running the center, Nimu Ben. So I feel very fortunate in having had taken this physical birth to this particular family because the parents were religious. We never had any kind of non-veg food in our house, coming belonging to a Gujarati family. Gujaratis didn't used to eat meat that time. Of course, people in India didn't, but nowadays it's a different story. But having had this kind of pure atmosphere in the house, there's no drinking, no smoking, none of that also. And so it was a very kind of protected, sheltered life that we all led. And when this knowledge first came to us, 1977, it was my mother who first took the knowledge and she liked it. And she said that you should go and listen to the knowledge also. So it was our school holidays. For a month, we had a holiday. And so we used to go to the sister's house and listen to this knowledge. In those days, there was no concept of the 7 days course. That came a bit later. And the sister would give us knowledge from the book, which was Illustrations of Raj Yoga. And in there, they've got their first lesson is actually the picture of soul, the soul, the point of light, the skeleton, and the human being, so that the light and the body of matter becomes a human being. So yes, we were able to understand that particular concept, but there was another concept in there which was showing about how the soul only transmigrates into a human body. In Hinduism, they have a concept that you have 84,000 births, and each birth is in a different species. And so there's always a kind of fear at that time that you're going to end up being in an animal or something else. But one of the pictures of this Raj Yoga illustrations was that you plant this particular seed, and this is the tree you will get. So there's a picture of a tomato and there's a picture of a mango. The tomato seed is planted and you get a tomato plant and you'll only get tomatoes from it. A mango seed is planted and you get a mango tree and you'll only get mangoes from it. And so that made it very clear that the human soul can only go into a human body and become a human being. That is not possible for a human soul to enter an animal body. And so that was actually one liberation that I actually experienced when I first got this knowledge. And I was very excited about that. The thing that attracted me most about this was the knowledge more than anything else, because there were such clear concepts about everything. And then, of course, we took the knowledge, we did the practice of meditation, I think, for about 2, 3 months. But at that time, I was still in school and going on to further education and everything, and found that this kind of life, there was a lot of renunciation in it. So I said, I'm not going to practice this anymore. Now, a soul has to go through their journey, and only when the time is right will they able to do everything. So I stayed away, I think, for about 4 or 5 years, and then came back into contact with the Brahma Kumaris. Whilst my mother and father, they continued with going to the center and listening to the Murli and everything. But as children, we didn't do that. And then a few years later, 77 to 83, then we were invited to a Shivratri program. So that's why we consider our spiritual rebirth to be at the time of Shivratri. So we were invited to a Shivratri program, and there we met some of the people who had taught us knowledge, Gyan, before. And they said, why don't you come again? Maybe you don't come every day, but you come once in a while. And of course, when you give a finger to Baba, then Baba takes the whole hand, and then before you know it, he takes the whole of you. So we started going. First, it was just 2, 3 evenings a week. Then he said, instead of coming in the evening, why don't you come in the morning? So then we started going in the morning. And again, it was only just 2 or 3 mornings in the week. But then he said, you're coming these days, why don't you come every day? So it started becoming an everyday thing. And of course, then whatever was the part of the soul in the drama, that part was opened. And then I continued this, and then in 85, I went to stay at the center. And from that time on, I'm still at the center, same place. And that has always been very generous in giving us so many responsibilities. You fulfill one responsibility, and before you know it, she has developed that trust in you. She'll give you another responsibility. She'll give you the second responsibility. It doesn't mean that you give up the first responsibility, so you now have two responsibilities. Before you know it, another year later, she'll give you another responsibility. So in this way, it was how Baba and Drama and the Dadis were working together to make all of us all rounders so that you get an experience of so many different things. And so I really count myself to be very fortunate, very lucky to have had all of these years with Daddy, whereby she has taught us so many things that now sometimes you don't have to think about anything because all the training that Daddy has given is like already there, ingrained within the soul. So if any problem arises, then you just think back of how Daddy would have dealt with it and you're able to deal with it yourself. You don't have to think about what am I going to do in this situation. So really, it's been so helpful, so wonderful to have had all of those years with Daddy. And of course, now we have Sister Jayanti the last few years. Daddy had been living in India. But now we're finding that even Sister Jayanti is spending less and less time in London. So she had gone away, I think, in October. She came just for 2 or 3 days, and then she had gone again. So now she's coming here, and possibly she'll be here just another 2 weeks or something, then going away again. Then before we know it, she has to go back to India. So very little time that she's spending here. But I find that the training that the daddies have given all of us here, that has been a really very good sustenance for all of us to hold the fort. So when other souls come here, then they're able to have a lovely experience. Like everyone who comes here, they feel like London is mini Madhuban.